What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back. This is Force, and here today I will be giving you my first impressions of Overwatch. I was one of the lucky few who got invited to the hands-on event courtesy of Blizzard. We were flown out to California and got to take a look at the game, actually sit down with it and play it for about 3 hours straight, which was just fantastic. I got a good opportunity to play all of the heroes, and I formed a few favorites. Like, I really enjoyed healing with Mercy. I enjoyed picking people off with Widowmaker and sneaking up behind people with Reaper. But I thought it would be good to just talk with you about my impressions. And something else that also took place at this event was the reveal of two brand new heroes, McCree and Zarya, as well as a new map, Watchpoint Gibraltar. Now, I'm certain that there's a few of you who came to this video just to learn about those characters, so let's get those out of the way. I'd like to talk with you about those two first before I hop into my sort of general impressions. So first off, there is McCree. McCree is a cowboy wielding a Peacekeeper revolver and wearing a nice little cowboy hat. His basic shot is just like a basic revolver shot, but then his right-click ability actually allows him to sort of slap back on the hammer and unload rounds very, very quickly. His shift movement ability is a combat roll, which also refreshes his right-click, so a popular strategy is to right-click to unload all your rounds, shift combat roll, and then do it again, and that just allows you to dump a ton of damage very quickly. His E ability is a flashbang, which will stun enemies in a short vicinity for about a second, and then his Q is Deadeye, in which any targets in his line of sight after a 10-second countdown will become locked on and one shot. You basically blow them up. As long as you lock on to everyone, it's kind of hilarious, to be honest with you. So McCree was a lot of fun. You know, he's in your face, he's dishing out a ton of damage. He's got a decent, his revolver's decent at a mid-range attack as well. The other new character is a tank character. This is Zarya. She wields a particle cannon, which shoots a particle beam. However, the right click is going to lob a area of effect grenade attack. Her shift and her E apply a protective barrier. Shift puts it on Zarya herself. E allows you to put the particle barrier on any of your allies. The barrier protects the user from incoming attacks, but it also enhances Zarya's attacks. So if someone is getting attacked by the enemies and you put a particle barrier on them, it's going to increase the damage of your particle cannon attacks, both the beam and the grenade that's lobbed. And her Q ability is called Graviton Surge, which is a gravity bomb that pulls nearby enemies together, and obviously, as you can imagine, any area of effect abilities that are used in conjunction with this is going to blow up the enemy team very quickly. So those are the two new heroes. We also got to see a brand new map, which was Watchpoint Gibraltar. It's basically this missile launching site, and where Winston is trying to, he's learning science. What else would a future space ape tank character do? And the goal of the map, though, is to push cargo from one area to the other, and you know, launch the rocket off into space or whatever. So that was pretty cool. Now, those are the new things. Let's just talk about the game in general. You know, it's always been the case for me. I talk about this every time Blizzard releases a new product. Something that they do well, whether or not you agree with all of their design decisions, is that they are just so good at polish, and they are so good at making games that are actually fun. The physical act of playing them is enjoyable. It's always visceral and tactile, and it just feels so good. It's the case with Diablo 3, it's the case with Hearthstone, it's the case with even World of Warcraft, for example. Their games are just darn right fun to play, and even though this is their first foray into the FPS genre, man, oh man, they nailed it. It is so fun to play. It feels so good. The weapon feedback, everything about it, just even moving around is a lot of fun, and having all these different heroes with all their different unique abilities and the roles that they fill. You know, this isn't a new thing. This is very similar to what you see in Team Fortress, of course, although Blizzard is doing their own separate take on it. You can't just pick up any weapon. Each of the heroes has their set weapons. They have their set abilities, but they're all unique. There's great flavor to them. There's the great character behind them, even just the dialogue that they shout off while you're playing the game. It all adds for a fun experience. But yes, the act of shooting, they nailed it. The last time I really felt this positively about a game's gameplay when in the FPS genre was Destiny. I thought that Bungie did a phenomenal job nailing the combat and the feel of gunplay in Destiny, and I feel that Blizzard has done a similarly amazing job of nailing the combat and gunplay here in Overwatch. It's just so much fun to play. Another really neat thing is that at any given point in time, you can swap out any of the heroes that you're playing. So you start off the game, you're playing a specific hero, and then you come across an enemy player who you're having a hard time against. You can just switch your hero after you die, switch to a new one, and try to counter that. And there's this constant flow, this back and forth, where anytime someone dies, they're picking a new hero, and you always have to be aware at all times that you could face anybody. It's not like it's not like a MOBA, for example, and it's not like Heroes of the Storm where you start the game as one hero and that's a hero that you play all game. No, there's this constant back and forth, this tug of war, depending on what you choose. And any team can choose multiple heroes as well. If you want to play 4 Widowmakers and just a couple of other whatever, you can do that. Like, you can do whatever you want on your team. So it's going to make for some very, very interesting play and counterplay. Now, this, of course, is going to lead me into my first negative, my first concern. As a team-based game, you rely on your team. So what this means is that in a random matchmaking situation, if you have a bad team, you're not going to have a lot of fun. If your team is doing horribly, if they're not hitting their shots, if they're not capturing objectives, if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, you're just going to get wiped up if the enemy team is even semi-competent. So that's a problem. That's a problem with all team-based games. There's nothing that's unique to this, but I do just want to point out the fact that that problem persists here as well. If you have a team that's not competent, you're just not going to have a good time. Something else that I didn't even think of prior to playing it, might have been a problem, but it turned out to really frustrate me, is the time to action post-death. Now, what I'm talking about is, say after you've captured one objective and you're moving forward towards the second objective. When you die in that process, on a lot of the maps, there was like a good 15 or so seconds from respawn until I got back into the action. Now, on one hand, yes, this adds more weight to dying, and what that means is it's trying to make you be more careful to make sure you're not dying. But on the flip side, what you get out of that is just an unfun experience of literally just walking from your respawn point to where the action is for a good 15 seconds. And it might not sound like a long time, but 15 seconds is a decent percentage chunk of a match that only lasts like a handful of minutes. You know what I mean? And after dying a few times, if you have a few of those 15-second runs, it really starts to add up. And that period of time is not fun. Now, there are certain characters that have movement abilities to let you get back into the action quicker, but if you're not one of those and your team doesn't have a teleporter set up, for example, then you're left with these chunks of time in the gameplay. It's not a fun experience to run back to the action. Again, though, I get it. It adds weight. It means that you need to be more careful to make sure that you're not dying. Whatever those thought processes are, this specific aspect of the gameplay is not fun, no matter how much you try to justify it. So I wonder if they're going to try to maybe reconsider that, or maybe give everyone a sprint. I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen, but I don't know. I'm not a game developer. Again, overall, my impressions were just fantastic. I think the game, I can't wait until it comes into alpha and we get a chance to hop in and play it. I am just so ecstatic. It's so much fun. Again, I love the uniqueness, the characters, all of them having their own backstory, having their own attitudes, their own special text and dialogue, and the gameplay is rock solid, as I mentioned earlier, which, you know, you might say is surprising because, hey, it's Blizzard's first FPS game, but once more, as I mentioned earlier, it's Blizzard. They seem to always nail gameplay, and Overwatch appears to be no exception to that rule. Alright guys, that is going to do it for my first impressions of Overwatch. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this discussion. I'm ecstatic. Can't wait till this game comes into alpha. Expect more coverage from me, undoubtedly. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a fantastic afternoon. I'll see you later.